Come on and tune into that old world charm. It's sweet delight. Yeah, that old world charm. They can spin some yarns to hold tonight.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another wonderful episode of That Old World Charm. This one a little bit different. This one we're getting a little serious, getting a little tender, getting a little close to home, possibly. This episode does come with a disclaimer and a trigger warning. We are going to be talking about mental health, our mental health journeys, how that interacts with the hobby and all the bits and pieces therein. So if you're not in a great place right now, feel free to shelve this one for a later date. And yes, I did say shelving. But snare drum, don't stick it up your butt. But of course, there's going to be a part 2 for this as well, which we have already recorded, where the lovely Danny was able to join us in lieu of the beautiful Val freaking Hefflefinger.
Hey,
welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, fellas. Always great to be here on That Old World Charm.
I was wondering if we were going to get to the intro, or we were just going to pretend like there was nothing going on.
I was tempted to just act like nothing had changed. Just intro Danny, but it's Val, and he just rolls with it.
Hold on, I've got Danny's intro music. Hold on. Oh, that was mine. There we go.
That is from Mob Rules, a hallowed.
That is not from Mount Mob Rules. That is from the now defunct Grim After Dark.
Yeah, I wonder if you and me, the three of us could do a show on just our defunct shows. Just a show talking about the shows that we are no longer on, or that no longer exist.
Wow, it's actually a pretty good Elephant's Graveyard of old podcasts.
It is.
Except for Forza Narrative still going?
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
He can't be stopped.
Say hi to my boy.
I will. I'll send him love. But my interaction with you two started and has continued for many a year, based on for Peter for his stats-based nuance and bringing that to all of our great games and systems. And then I actually got my start in podcasting pretty much thanks to Val. I was doing my own little thing there, and thanks to Val's recommendation, I got leapfrogged.
You might say you both did, but you know.
Oh. Well,
whatever. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I know talent when I seize it.
Yeah, I was only supposed to be a one-hit wonder with Mr. Pablo Martinez back in the Chapter Tactics days, and it was
wow. So this is just a defunct podcast episode. We're going right back to it. But anyway,
kinds of skeletons in these closets.
Back to the trigger warning. So by all means, if you are not in a great place mental health wise, we do not want to add to or unstabilize in any way. So feel free to not listen to this one. We will miss you, but we are going to be talking about our personal mental health journeys in regards to the hobby and what it has given us, gained us, what we've learned, what we'd like to pass on, and everything else in between. So if this is not for you, so be it. Feel free to turn off now. But if it is, feel free to stay for the journey, and hopefully you will learn some things, pick up some things, and if not, hopefully what we say just resonates with you.
But I do want to. There have been a few hobby-related mental health podcasts that I've heard, and I've also seen feedback from mental health professionals on those podcasts. And so I'd like to add another disclaimer, which is we're not mental health professionals.
Exactly.
We're three guys who have gone, who've lived our lives and experienced things, and I think perhaps the story of how we've interacted with what we've encountered is hopefully useful to some or insightful. But we're not mental health professionals. We might, still got some of this shit wrong. So if you are going through things yourself, don't lean on podcasts. Outside of Warhammer, also a terrible idea to do that. Definitely avail yourself of professionals out there who are there to help you if they can.
Exactly right. Let's just jump in, and I'm gonna kick this over to Peter first, who has a long journey. And you tell as much or as little as you like, brother, but feel free to kick it off.
Okay, I thought we would go with the guest first, but I suppose we can do save the best for last.
That was the idea, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm going to seem pretty bush league. I was hoping to lead off. I'm hoping to get on base for you guys, but anyway.
Fine. Well,
no, it's okay. It's all right.
We're doing so well, guys.
No. Please, by all means.
So we already kind of did the miniature trigger warnings. I'm glad Val brought up the thing that I was going to bring up about just making sure that don't use this as your your way to mental health success. There's professionals out there for a reason. We're just going to tell our stories and go from there. But yeah, like my mental health story, it goes back, quite a ways. Some would probably say from birth, but I didn't quite realize it. I was only in the last year officially diagnosed with ADHD, but it was very clear that I've been this way my entire life. I was always the like gifted child in school that did everything super fast until I got to university, and then all of a sudden I had to have more structure, and I was like, "Oh, can't do that. That's a little awkward." And yeah, so I kind of raw dogged reality for the vast majority of my time. You can tell in a lot of the ways I've approached my hobbies, whether it be like 40K when I got so desperately into the statistics side of things that it like took over my life at times.
There's a degree of hyperfocus involved.
Yeah. Or like, any of the other hobbies that I've been interested in. I played like the Game of Thrones card game for a while. Like I never did anything half-assed. It was always like, oh, there's something new and shiny. It's going to take over my everything for the next little while. And I'm going to be the best I can be at that thing until something else comes that's slightly shinier. So that's kind of like the ADHD side of things. I also am a single father of 2 autistic children. So I deal with that on a pretty regular basis. I have them full custody. And that's been my life for the last few years. And I've also dealt with like chronic depression for the majority of my life. And so it's kind of led to this like big ball of, competing emotions, a lot of comorbidities, and how that all kind of works together. Mm-hmm. And the thing I would say about the hobby and how it's interacted with that, there's this hyper-focus side of things that I've briefly mentioned where, whether it be Warhammer 40K or fantasy or anything like that, there's the grittiness of the numbers that always attracted me, the like rule structure, which I actually get more into the more loose the rules are, because it just like drives me to. There's something like insane about it that makes me need it to be more perfect, and so I have to get deeper into the weeds on it. Mm-hmm. And
I didn't until Old World came along. I didn't realize I missed stupid rules debates.
Right.
Like right? and like because that was a lot of Warhammer 40K when we were playing. Even 8th edition had a lot of weird interactivity, and so like getting into 8th edition, where before Old World came out, I was playing 8th edition fantasy. Excuse me, and I was texting these 2 guys all the time, like 10-year-old rules questions that still were unanswered, of course, because they're unanswerable. But there's something to having, sinking your mind into those. I guess this is, I bet you ADHD is common in lawyers.
Oh,
it is. It's also like common, like a little touch of the tism in ADHD, very common in air traffic control.
Your career. Yeah.
My career. Yeah. Most of the, like whether they'll admit it or not, I would say the majority of my coworkers have a touch of one or the other or both. And it's like, it's so funny to me. Like it came up recently, actually, I just changed jobs and moved into like a training role. And one of the other trainers, when he found out I have ADHD, he's like, "Oh, that's weird. He'd never worked in a tower or anything. Came from another department." And he's like, "That must have made your job so hard. I'm surprised like Nav would hire you with that." And I was like, "Well, actually, it makes my job like infinitely easier because I can hyper focus in the worst possible scenarios. It only sucks when nothing's happening, and then I have to find something for my brain to do." Yeah. So, and the thing about Warhammer that attracted me, other than the numbers and like this, was this like vast narrative world that I could sink into. So like, there's always something for my brain to focus on.
It's a perfect trap.
So yeah. So like when the game sucks, I can be like, well, I'm just going to read the books. And when the books aren't doing it for me anymore, I've read them all. The game's probably better by now. Or there's like another thing I can do, or, hey, maybe I should actually sit down and paint these thousands of models that sit in a shelf. Let's get on that for a bit. And so like my hyperfocus rotates. And then as I've gotten older and I've learned about how my brain actually functions, and I've gotten some structure. I've taken some medication. You can start to like build out schedules and stuff around that. And the one thing I've learned, especially when it came to the depression side of things, was just how much more important the community of the game was to me than anything else. And I used to say that on the podcasts a lot when I first came in. It's like, for all the like hyper focus I have, for all I care about the numbers and all these other things that interest me, what keeps me in when I'm on a low or anything like that, it's always been like just how much the community means to me, like the memories I've had and built with this community, and then this like need to give back because of that. And so so that's kind of like the Cole's notes without getting super deep and dark into my last decade or so of life. But
the codependency of Warhammer players is I think often a positive, more a virtuous cycle rather than a vicious one. I guess the thing that does keep us together, obviously, is a commitment to a lifestyle rather than a hobby. We should really co-opt the lifestyle, capital letters, because of everything you just said, like because of the fact that it does for the right person really does suck you in and does sort of become becomes your social group, your primary mode of entertainment, your the thing that you doodle about and daydream about. It becomes that sort of it's weird. I don't know that I'm comfortable with it even now, but it is wild how it becomes like sort of a very central part of all sorts of your life's aspects, or it can anyway. I don't know.
Absolutely. I did key on a thing there. I'm like, did I start making content because I have ADHD and I was just inactive for the right amount of hours required for me to be like, I could talk. People would want to hear me talk, right? I could do that. I could just talk about the thing that I spend all my time talking about and doing anyway that I'm not doing this moment. Bada bing, bada boom. Here we are. Tens of thousands of hours later. And I wonder how many podcasters have ADHD in general.
For me, there's a thread there that, like the podcast, like the why do I subject people to my thoughts and opinions on things, and like I honestly think it comes down to influencing people in something that I consider a good thing. And I think when you're suffering overwhelm, and I mean right now the world is the world is always in some degree, somewhere, someplace. There's always something awful happening, and there's always injustice, and there's always things that are much larger than us that are far beyond our control. And I lived, maybe to a point delusionally, but like growing up, my parents, I'm from Canada. We always had the CBC on in the background, so I lived with sort of international, national, and local politics constantly in my brain. And when I was in university, I read 4 papers a day, newspapers. Probably read 4 newspapers a day, and then the Economist Weekly and Harper's and the Atlantic Monthly. Like I was just constantly filled with all of this stuff that was often horrifying, but beyond my control. And I really wish now, like one thing about like podcasting and also just commenting on the internet and whatever and organizing is that like Warhammer, the Warhammer world, the community felt like something that I could actually make a positive impact on. You know what I mean? And like it was something within my control. If there was a rule that was misinterpreted, I could get in there, or I could ask my friends for a good read and then get in there and try and communicate it. If there was something fun or awesome to do, I could share that. I could create that. I could do things that, to a degree can help people and brighten people's lives and, make human experience a little bit nicer. And like, but it was something that felt more within my control, to be able to affect a positive change that, say, something like your local politics maybe is a little bit beyond you. It'd be cool to see if I can backwards apply this someday to organizing in my actual community. But yeah, I'd be lying if that wasn't a big driver of why I did wind up in podcasts and organizing and broadcasting and all that kind of stuff.
And now renegade rules corrector.
The renegade rules, renegade. But that's a great example of like, okay, I think this is like, not to put too like it's grandiose language, but this is an injustice. This is a wrong, and people are genuinely upset about it. Like, as someone who came to 8th edition fantasy as like almost like a Warhammer anthropologist, like visiting old forums and listening to old podcasts and hearing and reading the heartbreak of the end times. Then we get old world and like, well, turns out like half of them are still pretty much in the end times. Like that just felt wrong. And I was like, well, we could jam out some pretty easy fixes and like make this better for people. And that's genuinely what happened. Like people, when I get comments when I post about it, a lot of the comments are just like, hey, thanks for doing this. It's not so miserable playing Lizardmen. Is that going to
like, how dare you?
Very rarely. I've got a brigade now. Eventually I'll jump the shark and the mob will turn on me, I'm sure.
100%.
But right now, that's not necessarily the case. And it's genuinely just like, hey, thanks for this. This makes playing X army less miserable and it allows me to participate. It's inclusive for those people.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel good.
I think what you're doing should be celebrated by everybody in the community, whether you agree with it or not. The fact that it's just being done is enormous. And thank you so much for taking it on, mate.
Well, not that you were a detractor or anything and told me not to do it, but it's fine.
I didn't want to do it. So.
But like all that sounds very high-minded and very grandiose, but I think what it comes down to is like a big part of when I'm feeling like I'm in free fall. A lot of times the mental image I have, I don't know if you remember the opening credits of Mad Men, which is Don Draper's character just falling through the air as sort of basically his life races past him. That's how I feel sometimes. And so like Warhammer is a thing I can just do. I can make a difference. I can make a difference for myself. I can play a game. I can paint a model. I can I never read a book. Read one, Scarstick. It was great. It gives you something you can do, even if it's a small thing, if it's a big thing. It gives you something you can literally do. And like that's one of the great values I think in having it in my life.
Yeah, it's always like just like you say, like it's for me, it's kind of always been like a centering thing. Because like I get the same way. Very similar background, CBC playing constantly from 6 a.m. until bed. In
Ideas.
my house. Usually the radio. Actually, I remember listening like every morning.
If I was ever confused with an intelligent person, it's just because I heard ideas for every night from like 9 till 10.
You got it. Yeah, exactly.
Years. Yeah.
None of your self-depreciation here, mate. None of that.
And like when I got into the podcasting, I had no interest in actually doing it. I definitely didn't think I was someone that should podcast. I just was asked because I did all these numbers and I was just trying to give back because of what the community had done for me, when I really got into the depressive side of things. And and what I mean by that is just the local community we had here in New Brunswick, because they came out for me real hard when some things happened. And so for me, like giving back to the greater community when I ended up moving to the far north and like kind of like you, where I didn't feel like I could give back in any other way. I was like, there's got to be something I can do. And then it just sparked this like constant need for people to invite me on their podcasts ever since. And now, 6 years later or whatever, or 7 years later, it just never stops. Someday I'll get to sleep.
Well, funnily enough, there's a commonality between both of your stories so far in that, with Val picking up the burden of the Renegade pack and the rules, he was, saw a need in the community or an injustice that he felt like he had something to offer. You did the same with stats, bringing numbers, figures, bringing insights to the world and to the community.
Some might say setting off a series of events that ruin 40K forever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think a lot of people would say that. Probably right.
So what Peter was doing when he was on those first podcasts here and there, he was the first person to pretty much stand up and say, well, this is the win rate. When people are like, I think this is winning. And Peter would be like, well, it's winning exactly this much. And he would he would be the one who could seriously just sit down and tell you what was winning all over the world and what was doing well, what was doing badly, what was in the middle, yada, yada, yada. And it's kind of the first authority on that. And so very similar to what Val said, that you saw a need and a thing that you had that you could offer and you decided to offer it, which, testament to you as well. And the fact that it came from you wanting to give back to the community is a beautiful thing. But
also, like I think Peter might agree, but it also gives it's also rewarding for the individual too, right? Like because it gives you something that gives back too, right? Like,
purpose.
It gives a purpose. As again, it's so funny. Like I hope people aren't rolling their eyes, but it is so funny. Like I just find again, you don't want to get too high-minded about it, but it just like even something as small as like here's a rules pack or like counting stats or whatever that is. There's gratitude that's shown back, and it also makes you feel like you're contributing to a greater thing, and that we might learn. You might learn from actual health professionals is an important part of wellness. Feeling a part of something larger than yourself. Yeah,
correct. We're all just out here flailing in the void, trying to find purpose and meaning. Yeah. And Warhammer is that for me, and sounds like that for you as well, and hopefully many other people who are listening. I'll tell you guys a little bit about my journey. I'll try not to get too super serious. People who know me personally know that I got a lot to share if I wanted to. But I started off pretty rocky in life. Didn't have a very positive childhood. I ended up being diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 6. As many young people did, 90s kids. And I had pills thrown at the problem. Essentially, every medical practitioner just decided to add another pill to the pile, saying that you will be better. This will make you better. You'll be fixed. You'll be sorted. People will love you more. People will like you more. Because I was a very wild kid. I couldn't be told what to do. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't be controlled or contained. And so they just kept piling up the pills until I was a bit of a zombie. And that led me down a belief system that taught me that I wasn't good enough as I was, and that I was always required to have something that I was taking in order to be more acceptable to others. And that led me down to illicit substance use, which then caused me to go on a 10-year journey of abject addiction to pretty much everything you can get addicted to. And that resulted in me coming and going and being forced to go to rehab at the age of 23 for my various issues and mounting criminal things that were coming up behind me. So I went to rehab when I was 23. I ended up, spending 2 years in treatment from the age of 23 to 25. Essentially, I was in some kind of institution trying to get well and trying to fix and undo all the things that I'd done to myself. And then I was in a halfway house after that at the ripe old age of 25. And I was still ADHD as fuck, like ADHD up to the eyeballs. But nothing to do with all that energy, absolutely no direction for it. Everything that I knew to do with that energy was destructive and painful to me and others. And so I was pretty much forced to sit still for the first time in my life. And that was a terrifying thing. I ended up spending a lot of my time just wandering streets, at all times of the nights and days and everything like that. And once upon a time, I did play and mess around with miniatures in my, pre-teens. Naturally, by the time I was 13, 14, when a lot of people are really getting into 40K, I was well and truly off the rails, and the rails were over the horizon, in another continent. But I did play a little bit of Warhammer from the age of like 9 till 12-ish. And I remember I was walking past a Games Workshop brick and mortar store in a shopping center, and I just out of abject no lack of direction just walked in and was sat down and given a Space Marine to paint. And during the literal 4 freaking hours, I sat there and did not move, which was the most peaceful I had been in my entire freaking life up to that point, as far as I can tell, apart from when I was off my absolute tits on substances. My brain was quiet for the first time, and I realized I was doing something where I didn't feel directionless, listless. I had a thing in my hand and a journey and a destination I wanted to achieve, and I was enjoying the journey. And I just kept doing it. I just kept painting and painting and painting and painting, and ended up getting involved with the community, ended up, getting involved with playing said games. I wasn't buying many miniatures. I was absolutely broke. I was below the poverty line. And so I was buying secondhand minis here and there, like once a month, maybe I could buy a blister pack and stuff like that. And I'd lovingly paint it up to the best of my ability, which wasn't very much.
I don't want to I don't want to throw you off in too much, but I really genuinely want to say that after hearing that story of you sitting down and painting a miniature, and just the cascading impact that had on your life, that was when I stopped calling this a waste of time.
Yeah.
that was when I realized that there was a genuine. It was the first time I had to give myself a permissive thought that this is a genuinely and potentially positive, transformative thing that you can do. And so I just want to give you kudos for that.
Thank you. I mean, I'm not. This is where I landed. I'm pretty sure the first thing that came along in my life in that stage that gave me that was going to be the thing I monkey gripped onto. And so you have that guy to blame, guys. You have the gentleman who handed me that thousands of hours that you've had to listen to my freaking voice because it's his fault. If that had been freaking basketball, if that had been fishing, I don't know.
Sure,
painting, whatever, sculpting, I don't know.
Whatever it is, right? Like
whatever it is,
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. There's a level of empowerment that we give to things. And that when we let ourselves, enjoy stuff and, believe in them and believe that the benefits of them. And no, this isn't The Secret or any of that crap. It's literally when you give yourself to something, sometimes that stuff gives back. And Warhammer has given me like a literal purpose and direction in so many facets of my life. I will tell you about a more recent mental health thing because of course that you guys know the journey up till then. I pretty much had never. So pretty much everyone in my family has something. Like all my brothers, all my parents, we've all got something mental health wise. The one thing that all my brothers pretty much had that I didn't was anxiety. They'd pretty much all been medicated for anxiety at some point in their life, some of them for their entire adult lives. About 2 years ago, I started having spontaneous panic attacks. Something had changed in my brain chemistry. Outwardly, my life, has always been very chaotic and extremely busy. But for the first time in my life, I was actively having panic attacks. The only other times I'd ever had panic attacks was when I was freaking coming down or something.
Yep.
And so I didn't know what the hell was. Most of them were hitting during the night. Like I was in the middle of the night. I'd wake up being unable to breathe, suffocating, all these things, all those horrible things. And I didn't know what to freaking do. Here I am. So just so everybody knows, I have not had a drink or used a substance since I went to rehab when I was 23. So I was left with this, this shouldn't be happening to me feeling. I've done everything right. I've been a good boy. This should not be, part of my journey now. And I was having 2 or 3 a day, where it was just spontaneous, just panic attacks. And, I had to go back to chop wood, carry water, which is, what I was told, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, just the basic mental health things that had maintained my life up until that point. And I had to go see somebody, had to go get medicated. And so after being, without a mind-altering substance, without having a single medication in my life, after being medicated throughout my entire, early life, teens and, early adulthood, I had to go and start taking pills again. And that was a huge challenge for me. And once again, I'll tell you a little bit more about that later because I don't monopolize too much of our time. But that was a big thing for me. That was a lot for me to have to go and take a pill again. And that gave me panic attacks even more. Sorry.
No, well, I think... Because one thing that I think, especially from your own personal story, and it also is part of our age too. I'm hopeful that there's less of a this is a magic pill, this is all you need approach to treatment these days. But I think it's pretty common for especially you're talking about. This case anxiety, but it probably started its roots are in ADHD and just sort of there are a lot of kids that were just really over medicated and as a result wound up having an aversion to something that later on, had they also been equipped with other tools and also gotten other therapies and treatments that in concert could have been useful. And so I think it's interesting that later on now you've come back to it, and I don't know whether or not it has been helpful to you or not.
Absolutely was. I had to swallow a big chunk of my pride. But I went and got medicated, and it was absolutely right call. Absolutely right call. Of course.
Is it pride or fear too, though? Right?
Huge doses of both.
Yeah. I think genuinely, I think give yourself some credit there. It's not just pridefulness, but also fear. Last time you went down that road, it didn't lead you to a very good place, right?
Yeah, exactly right. But I'm no longer off on them. I took them for about just over 12 months, and then decided to reduce off. And haven't had the issue since. My brain chemistry, whatever was happening, has readjusted itself, and no issues. So yeah, just putting it out there. Like, if you need help, go and get it, guys. Like, don't be afraid. No one's too good for it or too bad for it. There's no right or wrong. You just go and get the help that you need when you need it, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, I mean, I raw dogged reality for the longest time because I didn't understand there was really something wrong with me per se. I kind of suspected. And in the last, whatever it's been, 4 months that I've been taking pills, the first time by accident, I think I messaged Val the day it happened. It's been like such a difference maker for me. Because like I have like medications for other things. And one morning I was just too quick trying to get my kids their meds and take my own. And I popped 2 of my sons, like basically meth pills. And
yeah,
sheesh.
Just to have
methylphenidate is not methamphetamine. Okay. Although when I get my text message for it, it does say meth in capital letters.
Yeah,
it's cut off, which is.
I mean, it's just a slightly but to just have that experience of like, oh no, what's about to happen, and then the actual thing that happened be like, wow, okay, I can actually sit down and do stuff right now, and not be in a panic that I'm not doing 4 things at the same time. Like I'm not trying to watch TV and read a book and build a model and do like Jeopardy trivia all at the same time, to just keep myself focused enough to live life in an hour. So
I think I think part of what undiagnosed ADHD does is that, and I think this can happen probably for a litany of other things too. But if you don't know what it's about self-discovery in a lot of ways, understanding yourself and where your limitations may or not be, where your strengths and weaknesses are. But ADHD is like an invisible force if you don't know what it is, and if you don't know if it's there. And I know we frame this a lot as mental health, but undiagnosed ADHD does lead to, or even untreated or unreckoned with ADHD can lead to a lot of anxiety, feelings of despair, failure, and just a lot of negative spirals that were, like, in my personal experience, like very present in life. And yeah, I don't know if take that as a segue or not, but.
Well, I wanted to point out one thing before, just the commonality I feel and the brotherhood I feel with Peter, because we virtually have the same stuff. But I started with all the labels being attached and all the pills being thrown in my early life, and having to deal with the "you have everything wrong with you" stigma, whereas Peter's had the inverse of that. Whereas he didn't get anything identified until later in life, and yet we've still come to a relatively similar place. I think it's kind of lovely. I think it's kind of lovely. I want to point that out.
It's pretty.
Yeah, my personal experience is actually very, very, very similar to Peter's. I think a lot of this has to do, I think, with perception, and also I think clinical understanding too of what ADHD actually entails and what it means, limitations and executive functions. It's not just about the kid who has poor impulse control or acts out or does dangerous shit. It is a brain that doesn't necessarily produce enough dopamine, and so isn't able to do things that a neurotypical brain might be able to do quite easily, and that includes holding more than one idea in your head at the same time. That includes, you mentioned impulse control, and also like a lot of those behaviors that are driven by, dopamine-seeking behaviors. For me. Addiction is I think a very common thing amongst people, diagnosed, treated, or otherwise with ADHD, seeking things like caffeine, nicotine, amphetamines.
And having worked in the field of substance use now, I work in AOD, and mental health is absolutely prevalent in I would say 95+% of cases of people with addiction. There is some mental health contributor. So yeah, sorry, mate, continue.
Yeah, and I guess that is all to say that for me, like I would say that from a material perspective, I grew up with what I would consider middle class privilege, and by that I mean there was never food scarcity at home. I never had to question whether or not I could go to university. We didn't have private jets and all that kind of shit. But I now live in what would be, very material privilege as well in my adult life. I've been very fortunate that way. But, growing up, I just lived what I would consider a very secure life. I had a family that was together all the way. And I was also, a pretty sharp kid. And so coming through sort of the school system, basically, the story on me was always, well, when he applies himself, he can do whatever he wants, and you can do whatever you want. Whatever you want, you can do whatever you want is something I fully encourage anyone out there to just stop saying, because it is not something, right? It is not a thing, and instead encourage interest and things that maybe those who look up to you. If there's something that is catching their attention, encourage specific things rather than anything, because anything is not a thing, and it can be quite overwhelming. And so, just like Peter, when I got to university, I was just met with an inability to cope with the workload and all that kind of stuff. Yet knew that I was someone entirely capable of it, and ironically, I was able to complete a lot of my coursework because there was someone very similar to Adam that was a dear friend of mine who was just, handed what seemed like, like the jugs that like protein comes in, those just comically large tubs. I swear to God, that was it, but it was just Ritalin inside of it. And it was just impossible. It was like an impossible amount of Ritalin pills. And he hated it because he was the same thing. He had been, the blinders were on, you're a crazy bad kid. And he would just give it away. He would, and so I wound up abusing Ritalin to my academic benefit, but had no idea. Had no idea that not only did I get really good at Madden, but also for some reason I could also settle down enough to write essays and stuff. So that sort of becomes a bookend. But simultaneously, I become incredibly addicted to nicotine. I struggle with obesity my entire life. I've had to, I've gone through a number of stomach surgeries in that level of intensity with obesity to sort of head that one off. And eventually, it wasn't until I wound up in a call center, having barely managed to get my degree, that there was this incredible corporate structure around me. My job was very gamified, and I was able to succeed again. I was able to just immediately have great professional success. And that really does start to change my life around. And however, and I also I can't, goes without saying, but shouldn't go without saying, but I meet a spouse who becomes also in a lot of ways my sort of meta brain, right? Like she is someone who, organized a lot of our parts of our lives, made sure things were happening. And What's really interesting is that the first time Adam ever met me, I was on the first trip I had been sort of in my adult life post university. First trip I had ever been on without my spouse in a very long time, probably 7 or 8 years, and I'd sort of forgotten, being my bachelorness and how I was. And so on this trip, I'm going to the ETC, which people may or may not know is like the Olympics or the World Cup of Warhammer. I'm playing 40K, and on in the course of getting to the event, I lose countless personal articles. I can't really. I play in a tournament in Stockport, and it doesn't go very well. But I sort of write that off as I'm just getting my feet wet. And then very famously, I managed to lose my passport, but I lose it in my shoe. And I lost it in my shoe because when I arrived in the UK, I wanted to stash my passport somewhere. And I stashed it in a pair of shoes in my suitcase. I then recorded a podcast with Paul for Forge the Narrative. And then I changed my shoes. But going forward from there, I completely had forgotten that I hadn't been wearing those shoes the whole time. I forgot that I hadn't worn those shoes on the plane and that my passport's now in those shoes. So I almost missed the ETC because I have to now get my passport replaced, and it's this whole kerfuffle. And I'm also, just kind of stupid, like fucking very, like legitimately, embarrassing, but hilarious. So trust me, if I was that embarrassed about it, no one would have ever heard the story. But I get to the ETC and I proceed to start playing, and like I wasn't a player at any point in my life that could light the world on fire, but I feel like I've had moments of competency, at least, like where I could, get points or whatever. And I just proceeded to basically lose in deployment for 6 rounds in a row. and not only that, but like not only losing in deployment, which is the earliest point at which you can lose a game of Warhammer, maybe the trading phase, but after meticulously putting in effort, you get 4 hours around at the ETC, and like putting in 100% effort, maximum effort, trying to learn from each game, and yet losing instantaneously once I said I was finished my deployment. And I came away from that event thinking I had a brain tumor, like thinking like, what is wrong? Like something is completely gone off the rails here. And that and other experiences. And I was spooked. And it's interesting that Warhammer was something that I was already in, but Warhammer actually led me to investigate myself, right? In a way that I hadn't really tried. When I was in university, interestingly, I had wondered why I suddenly couldn't function. And I'd actually gone to see a counselor and my GP, my general practitioner, and I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. Well, sure, I was anxious because I was failing university, and I was depressed because my world was falling apart. But those weren't the root causes per se. And at no point did this ADHD thing appear. And it wasn't until I told my sister about what I'd gone through, and she said, "Well, Simon, recently I did an ADHD test and a little self-assessment, and did that with my GP, and it didn't like resonate with me, but man, it made me think of you." And I was like, "What the fuck? What are you talking about? ADHD? What are you talking about?" And it was at that time that I then, got my diagnosis, the quote, most slam dunk diagnosis my GP had ever made, which is always something. You always love going to your doctor and thinking like, this isn't the worst that he's ever seen, but this he's ever seen. And then also a journey of understanding what it actually entails, what the limitations are, what the strengths, the weaknesses are. And to me, that period of discovery of myself, because again, I'm a guy who thought he was going to be a hotshot lawyer. I'm a guy who thought, if I play my cards right, I'm going to be in some high elected office. Like this is kind of my fantasy of my future life. I am not that guy. But there was always a little bit of dissonance between where I wound up and where I thought I was going. And I never understood like what was this great personal failure? Why couldn't I answer the great promise that I saw for myself? And it was, I always describe like learning about ADHD was like the last minute of like that montage in The Sixth Sense where Bruce Willis realizes he was a ghost the whole time. And I just
ghost the whole time.
Well, but just replaying my whole life through that lens just allowed myself, just suddenly there was time ever forgiveness for myself, like some grace, like some humility immediately, because like it's not just that there was a reason, but like it was like here is the thing, here's the invisible force that was there. And for me, that's ADHD, and for others it could be other things. But I think a lot of people don't pick at that because they're scared of what Adam described, the labeling. They're like, now you're this thing, or you're in this box and you're limited in these ways. But for me, it was so empowering, and it was such a relief to be able to now say, okay, I now know what forces I am up against per se, and what tools might be out there that can help me, what situations I'm going to be good in and what situations I'm going to be real stretched in. And it just allows for compassion, self-compassion, I think would be something that I really hadn't felt before until then. And it was literally being catastrophically bad at Warhammer. It was so bad. I was so bad at Warhammer that had I not gotten my passport replaced and just not showed up, literally would have had zero impact on the performance of our team. Had they played with 7 players instead of 8, would have made no difference. Would have made no difference to the outcome of that tournament. So yeah, Warhammer fully allowed me to have to stop and look at myself, and that was just fantastic.
I still have the jersey, Val.
I still have your jersey too, and I'm almost able to fit it again.
Oh, I have Diffie's jersey. Still doesn't fit me.
All right, we've all told a little bit of our journey, where we started, where we are, and how the hobby has helped us, wrapped us around us in a big whole nice hug and given us all sorts of wonderful things. Let's switch to talking about maintaining good mental health in conjunction or in the lens of our hobby. And we'll kick it off back with the same cadence. Peter, how does the hobby help you maintain your mental health if it does?
I mean, I hate going first because you guys told wonderful stories and I half-assed one.
If you need to one-up us, you can. That's okay.
No, I don't need to, dude. I definitely don't need to.
You can't now.
The hobby, I think I kind of mentioned it. The hobby helps center me a lot. The big thing is community for me. For me, the ADHD diagnosis, like for Val, except much more recently, it was like a it's not like I hadn't suspected for a little bit, but prior to that suspicion, there were so many times where I would complete a project or take part in an event and afterwards just have this, I just thought there was something absolutely wrong with me because I would get, and I know Val saw this a couple times, and Adam, you may have too, in my early Warhammer 40K career, doing LVO, and we were finished that first Shadow LVO we did, and us finishing, and I just I gotta go, and I just walked the streets of Vegas by myself because I was so depressed that I felt like I didn't do the best job, or the Las Vegas Nopen doing that, and then at the end of it, people being like, hey, we're going to do this video because we did such a great job. And I was like, I don't want to be part of it. And I would just get into these modes where once the dopamine rush was done, once everything was settled,
bottomed out,
because I can't maintain it. My brain just doesn't do it. It was okay, you are the worst. And what the hobby does for me when I'm not like that, when I'm not, when I wasn't getting into these project zones, was that sense of community that here's a bunch of people that are like me in so many ways, many more ways than I think I would have ever thought or realized that I can actually communicate with and on my level, and not saying that in the terms of I'm smarter or whatever, but in the same vein. And so that's always been the big thing for me. And it's just that occupier that's helped just about as much for me, at least, as seeking professional help, which I think everybody should do if you can afford it, and if you can't, find the free ones because they go a long way towards making things better regardless. So especially finding the right one. But anyway,
beautiful statement. Val?
Yeah, for me, I think one of you open this up by using the word cadence. So and I think we've all spoken to the importance of finding ritual or routine or what have you, and podcasting, which all the podcasting I do is related to Warhammer, is a big part of that. Is something that is a sort of a heartbeat that I can depend on and want to do and show up for, and I look forward to, and it is always something that's positive. And then also just, again, I think I touched on it already, but when things are overwhelming, the hobby or the community is something that, feels manageable to me. So playing a game, which by the way, it's hilarious to think that playing a game of Warhammer is, a manageable goal, but there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
But it is something that is pretty fucking hard. and I can achieve it. You know what I mean? Like I can do that. Like I can get an army list together. I can, if there's an event coming up, I can paint up, X amount of units, and it gives me, those touch points or something to cling to when other things are maybe a little more amorphous or beyond my control, and maybe I'm, feeling like the guy floating through the air. I had a dream that I was 300 pounds. Anyway, a little bare naked ladies. But yeah, so it again, it is a grounding or centering exercise, and it can be from a number of different avenues. And then I think it goes. I think something that breaks my heart about how much the so-called competitive community is disparaged out there, because it is also a way to meet new people, and there's maybe nothing better for a human than social interaction, unique and new social interaction, than going to a place where you might meet other people and who are similar. Sure, we all have a very specific interest and a very particular taste in things, which is playing tabletop Warhammer. But there's people from every walk of life in this, and you get to know them when you go to a tournament. When you go, you go out for dinner, maybe with some strangers and people that are from out of town or from where you live or whatever, to the point where, now a lot of my closest friend groups are all, at least started, grounded in playing Warhammer. And there's a lot of people who I don't play 40K anymore, but I'm still dear friends with a lot of players from that community. And our friendship didn't end because I stopped playing it, because there's a genuine connection there. And so, yeah, I think, yeah. So a centering or a tethering to the world, whether, and, achievable things that I can do when things are overwhelming. And then also just the novelty of being able to meet and interact with people literally all over the world. It's a pretty unique privilege in our culture right now.
Absolutely is connection. Yeah. Connection is where I'll start my little tirade. Just giving something that offers me a positive connection has been one of the biggest gifts when, I really wasn't really connected to anything for so many years. Anything good, anything positive. The other one is like, so I require rigidity in my life and in my routine in order to function well. And Warhammer has given me that, like, in so many ways. I have to record my podcast at this time. I have this 2 hours that I need to get this painted for the GT in 2 weeks. I use the GT in 2 weeks. That's filled up a weekend for me of doing awesome stuff. Here's 3 hours where I'm just here with a mate playing a game. I'm locked in to something. I have things to look forward to, purposes to move towards, journeys to enjoy.
Things to look forward to. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's big. It might not seem big, but it's big.
Yeah.
So offering me a level of rigidity and predictability in something has been really, actually, I'm just talking at like the most basic, level of my existence. And then it just goes up by magnitudes from there. Outlets to, at some level share my experience and hopefully some strength and hope to others has been, one of the top levels of actualization there on good old Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In addition to just giving me something that keeps my head quiet, like just painting, writing a list, reading a novel or a rule book. I don't read rule books. And also,
obviously, if anyone's listened to our review episodes,
that's why I have you here, Peter.
It's true.
Also, who's going to ask the dumb questions about interactions if I read a rule book?
Adam learned the genius of being the host who doesn't have to know anything from Paul and Val.
So, in addition, I do read rule books in the past many a time, and I've studied them many a time. I'm at a level of capacity in my brain where adding new rules pushes other rules out.
Yeah.
So I outsource my rules knowledge a little bit too often, and I probably take
There's also a use it or lose it thing too. Like, it never ceased to amaze me at how many times I could just ask for a ruling from you guys about a random 8th edition thing, and you guys would know it cold off the top of your head.
I know and can recall 8th edition fantasy rules that I read and memorized freaking 10 plus years ago better than the old world rules. Like,
Yeah.
it's not even close.
Well, that was like peak brain activity for me. So
me too.
Like,
it got like maximum hyper focus for me.
Yeah.
Like, edition fantasy.
Like there was a period in 8th edition where when I was running events, like I could look at a table and I could say, like, without knowing like what magic items or anybody took, exactly how many points like each unit was worth on every table. And like people would look at me, like I could walk by and they'd be like, and I could hear a number and be like, you're wrong, it's actually this. And just like just because I knew like literally every fucking unit in every book, just because that was my focus for so long. So,
well, in addition, like the 40K hats that I wear demand that level of knowledge from me. Like I must know all those things at all times about 40K, and it's ever evolving, ever changing. And it's actually been a huge relief to me to have to not have to do that with Old World, to let Old World be a little bit more casual, to be just something I can keep back and enjoy with my mates. It's been hugely relieving for me. Like if I came back to and was playing Old World like I played 8th edition 40K, so 8th edition fantasy, and I have to maintain the knowledge level of 40K to maintain my other gigs, I wouldn't. I would fall in a heap and I would burn out, like straight up. Yeah. I don't think I could. I mean, yeah. So it's been beautiful, and like I'll echo what Val said. The biggest thing that this place ever gave to me was mates. Was connection, positive connection, people who I have things in common with that are, not negative, not always positive, depending if we're down in the salt mines, but a positive connection, something to do with my brain and my energy and my love and my passion that goes towards building something rather than destroying something. And so gentlemen,
I want to say, because one of the important things about Warhammer. And I want to beat this to death, but one of the important things is that it is a shared experience with other people, right? Like and like a video game is too, but there is something to being physically present with others, and especially like in a world where we have so much social media interaction, we have so much algorithmically driven things to draw our attention, that often what's driving that. And I see this because now I promote my show. Like I promote Square-based a lot, and in places like Reddit or YouTube or Facebook, and I can see the difference in tone of those places in the comments, and what comments are elevated as well. And usually, especially in places like Facebook, particularly, negative comments or comments that generate a lot of back and forth, which are often negative, rage baity type things. Those are the posts that have the most engagement and staying power and stay at the top of the heap. And I've also noticed too that on YouTube, we are very fortunate in our viewership and our community that it is genuinely majority positive. But occasionally, like things will pop up where we'll get hammered by somebody over something, and I'll look at usernames and, I'll maybe go a little bit deeper, and I'll come to realize that it's probably not even a real person.
Yeah.
And like, maybe that's less on Facebook, but it probably isn't. Probably there's a lot of fake persons out there, but there's two kinds of ghosts in this world that we are confronted with all the time. One is literal fakeness. So, and those bots are only getting better at being incendiary. But manipulating us into a negative interaction, a negative feeling about another person. That could be a bot, or it could be someone who just got into a tizzy because they were, brought to a certain emotional place, and there is no consequence to pressing enter on your keyboard, and they are now part of a real negative feedback loop, and that the toxicity of all of that is real, and it can have a real impact on people, including myself and others. But the reason why I'm saying this is that type of interaction is less so when you're amongst people. It's not that assholes don't exist. It's naive to say that, right? Like, and that includes at tournaments and whatever. But when you're amongst people and you're actually in their presence, there are so many other things that we as monkeys, like social monkeys, have evolved to help us in those scenarios and to take those hard edges off, to have empathy and to see, what's going on with another person, to see how they actually present themselves. All those cues are gone on the internet. And that's why I think it's so important to actually be in physical places with people who do things. And in our case, is play this game. But I think a lot of people stay away from sort of playing against strangers because they assume it's going to be the same type of strangers they see all the time on the internet. And I think we are not ourselves online a lot of times. We're this weird manipulated avatar of ourselves. And to keep that in mind, if you're staying away from social interaction because out of, anxiety over what type of people might show up when you show up there, I think you'll be at least hopefully pleasantly surprised that it's not a room full of monsters like the internet can be.
Yeah. And perfect segue, because we spoke directly to managing negativity in our community and managing your own negativity over on part 2, which is probably where we're headed right now, gents, unless there's anything else that you guys think we need to speak to.
No, I think I've babbled enough for an hour.
Me too. Val, you got anything left? You can babble a long bit more if you like.
Well, I won't stretch it out just for the sake of it. I think, my big mental health takeaway is you are who you are. It is what it is. Self-knowledge for me personally has only ever been a good thing. That might be coming from a place of privilege in that it has turned out to only be a good thing. But I do encourage folks to, if there's something that you've just been grinding raw dogging, as Pete said, and just grinding away at. And if you can find some space in your life to start, that journey of self-discovery, hopefully aided by, friends, family, and ideally learned professionals who have also experienced a lot of other people's journeys and experiences and can share that knowledge with you. However you go about it, I think it is an important thing to not shy away from. And it is something that will, it can help arm yourself to, not only be a better individual for yourself, but for those around you too. So,
yeah.
And I would like to sign us off before we check out with 2 disgustingly wholesome statements. The first of which is, if you take nothing else away from this podcast, just know that regardless of what tagline you have, what spectrum you're on, what you struggle with, what pills you have to take, or what your life has been, there is a place for you in this community, and hopefully you can find a home like many of us have, and you are welcome here. In addition, come over and join us over on Patreon. That old word, but yeah, suffice to say, please just know you're welcome here. And if at all you need to, I am somebody who has some mental health proficiencies. I'm not a practicing mental health professional at the moment, but I will speak for myself and many other members of the community. If you are struggling, freaking drop me a DM. Go for it. You will be surprised how okay I would be with that. I would much rather that than many other things and outcomes. So reach out to your mates, lean on each other, be there for each other, and let's enjoy the old world. Peter, Val, thank you so much for coming on this freaking episode. Thanks to Danny, who joined us for the part 2, which hopefully you guys will go over and enjoy, because I think it was a fantastic episode. Thank you to our incredible patrons who have supported us and allowed us to continue doing this podcast for 51 episodes. And hopefully many more into the future. It's a choo-choo train all the way to 100 now. We've got to get there. We made 51 and we didn't stop at 50. So that's a big mistake on our part. We've got to do 49 more. Huge rookie error. But gentlemen, thank you so much. Val, this is your chance for your plugs. Take it away.
Obviously, maybe not obviously, but I do the show with Robert Symes, the Square-based podcast over on YouTube and any podcast aggregator that you prefer. I've actually gotten really good at uploading them, timely fashion. And also, if you are within a affordable flight of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, we got the Square-based Open coming up October 18th to the 19th. Peter the Falcon should probably be there.
I'm going to be there.
Paul, I'll be there. I don't think Adam's schedule brings him close to me this time, so he probably won't be there. But
unfortunate.
We are up over
ticket for the event. I'm going to do that right now.
No. I'll just no. But nonetheless, we'll it's going to be a really great thing. We got an amazing goodie bag for everyone. Everyone's going to come away with some really cool branded square-based objective markers. We're gonna have line of arc things for everybody. We've got the secret mission decks, so like some really nice printed cards, color cards, and a scorecard. Everyone gets to walk away with lots of cool swag and chance to win prizes for all sorts of different things. We got over 40 people already signed up. Got 3 weeks to 3 weeks ish.
Real big
maybe.
old world event.
It's a real big old world event.
It is.
And we still got a month to go, and there's room for 80. So if you are intrigued, if you would like to come meet some like-minded people or just have a good time playing Warhammer, please do come to the Square Base Open Toronto 2025. Thank you.
Love you, buddy. Love you, Peter. Take care. Look after each other. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to That Old World Charm with those charming chaps Adam, Danny, and Peter the Falcon. Thanks ever so much. Cheerio.